Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today is a special treat because Sage Polaris is back on with us yet again. She was on a recent episode where we were talking about how to increase conversions with your copy. And today we are going to be diving a little bit deeper into a couple of the concepts that she had introduced in that episode that I know you were really curious about if you were listening. And she shared that she takes 4 months off per year as a way of working smarter, not harder. So we're going to deep dive into how she does that and how she structures her business to do that. And we're also going to talk about her business model, because right now I know so many of you are looking at and making pivots in your business model. Some are pretty dramatic, some are more minor, just to really try to increase the effectiveness. And so I want to understand a little bit more about Sage's decision and how she approached it, because I think this will be really incredibly helpful for all of you. So Sage, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, so grateful for part 2. This is exciting.
Absolutely. Let me tell you just a little bit about Sage again, and then we're going to dive into the good stuff. So she has written high converting copy for more than 475 projects, earning them millions of dollars. She helps personal brands and service providers to sell more of their service or offer with the words on their website. So be sure to go back and listen to the first part of this interview, which you'll find linked down below in the show notes. But what I want to start with you right now, Sage, is really talking about business model. So I know you shared that you made a pivot of being more of a service provider to more of a one-to-many model. So can you walk us through what led to that decision and what have been some of the ups and downs and journey along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart making that switch. And I feel like as a copywriter, I watched a lot of my peers try to launch courses and have them not work out. And I knew that the reasoning behind it was that they were getting burnt out on their private client work. So I personally also early on in my business, so I'm 11 years deep into my business, just for context. But around year 2, I tried to launch a course. I got like 2 sales. One of them was affiliate. So I owed some money on that. And I was like, okay, clearly I haven't built up enough brand recognition and authority for people to want to buy my course. And I hadn't built enough of an audience and a community around me. So at that time, I was like, oh, my profit sweet spots, which is what I call them in my business model, are actually around serving private clients. Like that part of my business is doing well. I'm not going to do what my peers do and just like burn all that down, like make this public announcement that the business is no longer around serving private clients. So instead, what I did was I quickly hired a project manager. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going with this private client work. And we're just going to build systems around that. Right. And like, instead of, and I see so many people skip this, Krista, and I love that you do this. I see so many people try to go straight from stage 1 in business, lead generation from referral network, to I'm going to launch a course now, and skip building out systems on anything. And so I was really like grateful for that insight. I was like, oh, this piece of my business is very profitable. I'm not going to get rid of it. That was never my intention. And so I never really burned out on client work because I had beautiful systems in place, and it was just so grateful for that. But then I got to around year 8 in my business, and I was still serving private clients almost exclusively. And I started to think to myself, can I have the success that I help my clients have for myself? And part of my bigger vision of what pulled me towards that was that I really wanted my work to be more accessible. You had to know somebody to hire me, which was great. And my clients were doing upwards of 1.25 million in a single launch, our first campaign together. Like, I was so proud of that work. And I felt so deeply connected to the people that I got to work with. It was such an intimate experience, and I loved all of that. So when I got to realizing, oh, I want my work to be more accessible, I decided to launch a copy template membership. And that switch to membership, I had resisted for a very long time because I know how much work they are. Like, I see what it takes to work against a constant churn rate of people leaving, to create all the materials for an entire year of a membership and all of those things, right? So I felt like I was going into it with a very clear understanding. And the soft landing between me and creating the membership was I started to launch some group programs because those were more intimate. I could charge more for them because I was putting so much more into the program. And it created a nice cushion of financially for me to be able to seed the money that would take for a membership to run, because memberships are also expensive. Most of my peers it's a break-even model for them, but then they upsell from there. So I knew all of those. It's like I went like eyes wide open versus the way I see a lot of people go into these different business models. They're just like doing it from a place of pain and not from a place of vision. So I think that's something to check in with yourself as a service provider. First is like, have I built systems around my existing profit sweet spots so that they can continue to bring me money? Because why would you, for me anyways, get rid of that unless it's crushing you in some other way? But for me, emotionally, it was still fun, right? And then the other piece of it was like, okay, if I'm going to go into a different business model, what is that going to be? And how can I do it intentionally and profitably from the beginning? So I didn't go straight to membership, right? Like, I started with those group programs, and that pivot was so exciting for me to like be able to increase my reach. And it's funny, I looked recently, at my ConvertKit, and I see people say like, I want to help 1 million people, right? Like, that's their big vision. I want to help 1 million women do XYZ or whatever it is. And I looked at my ConvertKit recently, and I realized my ConvertKit has sent out 1 million emails, because that's over time, all of the subscribers and all of the emails that I've written, I've now reached 1 million people. And I was like, whoa, that's wild.
That is wild. I was reflecting the other day. I have sent out at least one email newsletter a week since 2005.
Woo!
So during this time, I've run multiple businesses in parallel. As a serial entrepreneur, I typically have 2 to 3 businesses that I'm leading at once. So that's multiple emails that I was sending every week. And I'm like, I should do the math on that sometime and see just how many email newsletters I've written in my lifetime.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Like, that's no small feat. And so, as I was building out these different pieces, reaching more people, letting my work be more accessible than ever before. Another thing that I realized was like on the private client side, I started offering VIP days. And I mentioned that a little bit in my last episode. That is one piece that really allowed me to take more time off. And not every client is meant to be a VIP day client. Like, I'm not pushing anybody into it. I'm more fluid where I'm like, what works best for you? Here are my options. But selling VIP days where I have like Tuesdays blocked out on my calendar and mostly filling private client work that way, there's so much white space on my calendar now. It's ridiculous.
It's brilliant. And I want to dig into that a little bit more, because I know everybody listening is probably like, I would like some white space, and I love the idea of taking 4 months per year off. But before you do that, I want to circle back to a couple of the things that you shared that I thought were so incredibly brilliant. And I hope everybody heard this. And if not, listen closely, because I think it was so good. The importance of systems, the fact that you recognized let me systematize what's working. So often people do not do that. And I think sometimes people look at systems as a way to fix something that's broken, but really systems are a way to get repeat positive results in your business. Sure, you can fix something that's broken, but if you have something that's working, put some systems around it. I love that you did that. I think that that's so incredibly important. The other thing I loved is that you went into the membership model understanding what it really means, because I cannot tell you how many people I talk to, and I talk off of the membership ledge, because they see a membership as this way to serve all of these people. And so they think, oh, it's great. If I just get this many people in, I'm going to make this much money. It's only this much content I need to create. It makes so much sense. And being behind the scenes of many memberships, being the COO for a large membership organization for a while, right? Memberships, there is a lot of complexity, and you need to build them with a whole lot of intentionality, a whole lot of lean from day one, if you don't want it to just be kind of a really expensive and very time consuming venture. And so I love that you approached it that way. And I want to pause there for a moment, because I bet for those of you listening, many of you have considered a membership. Maybe you have a membership. Like, what are some tips that you would give to somebody who is thinking about a membership to know if it's a good fit and how it fits into their overall business model?
Yeah, I mean, first run the numbers, right? So reverse engineer what it would take for you to get the result that you want. So typically, you just look at how much money you want to make, and that's good. So I would run the numbers on money for 12 months. What do you want to make from the membership? And then reverse engineer it from there, because we tend to think like, oh, if I just get 5 members a month, but actually that wouldn't get you to your revenue goal. So go with the big revenue number that you want. Reverse engineer that number of, let's say, just on a 10-month year, you wanted to make $100,000 from your membership, right? Like, how many do you need to get to that number? So you might be surprised that it would take you, like, I don't know, 50 members or 25 members a month to get to that number. And then, like, what kind of audience build do you need to get to that number? So for me, I have had 6,000 people cumulatively from all the times we've run our no charge copy course go through that. And then, for example, last January and February, we added 150 customers in 2 months, which was amazing, intense too. So for that reason, I only do that once a year. Like, I only launch my membership once a year. It is not like, I love that people think they can do evergreen and just keep adding 25 to 50 members a month. That's harder than you think, because of the audience build you have to do to get those numbers. And then the conversion of, like, getting those, even if you get those of, like, let's say you add 1,000 people to your list each month, and 10% of them come through, 100 people, that's high. Most people are expecting like 20 people to come from 1,000, and 1,000 lift of audience build is heavy. Like, it's heavy. I don't know if it sounds heavy to people, but just being completely transparent here, it's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy, it's
um,
expensive.
it's heavy, it's expensive. So, those things, and it depends, my audience is 75% organic, 25% paid. And so that costs money, right? Like, it's not always a profitable venture every single month to maintain that membership. So all of those things are things to keep in mind. And then I guess my last advice is just to make sure you have really good upsells. My membership price point is $147 per month, which is on the higher end, right? But I kind of do that on purpose. At some point, I may lower the price and remove some of the access to me, if I get to a wider audience. But right now, there's so much support from me. They're essentially getting hot seat coaching from me every month, plus a co-working coach, plus the templates. Like, there's a lot that goes into it that allows me to charge that. And that's like my happy place right now with how much revenue I'm getting and all of those things from it. But it is not the end all be all of my business. That is where my business starts. It is not where my business ends. So definitely think about what you're going to offer after the membership, when you get to those numbers that you want. But I do know that for some people, when I talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, I would like to make, a certain amount of money from this membership. I'm like, okay, you have to add 100 students at the price point you want to charge. So you either need to raise your price and also get really real with yourself. Do you want to deal with 100 students, or would you rather serve 10 clients for the whole year and charge them 10,000 a piece? Which one feels better to you? That's the last question I would ask yourself. Like, run the numbers and then see, does it feel good for me to serve 10 clients at 10K a month and make 100K from that, or 100 students at 1,000 per student and make 100K from that? So when you look at those things, it should be pretty intuitively pretty clear to you what you actually want.
Yeah. Thank you for those tips, because I think it's so smart to approach any decision that you make in your business that way. And the thing that you shared that I really love is people making decisions from a place of pain versus vision. That's so, so good, because everything we do should be vision aligned. I think we can be reactive sometimes in business, especially in times when things aren't working and you look around and you're like, so-and-so just signed 600 new people to their membership. I'm going to do a membership. So-and-so, meanwhile, had millions of people on their list in huge affiliate partnerships and all of these other things that people overlook and just reactively think, oh, I'm going to do that because that worked for this person. So I love the way that you're sharing kind of the intentionality behind those decisions.
That's so good, Krista. Lean into your strengths, your personal strengths. I have 11 years in business. I have all of those clients that I serve that I helped make a lot of money for them, that in turn have become partners for me to help me grow what I have now. It took me a long time to leverage those relationships. I didn't really make asks before I started my membership. I just was there doing my thing, grateful for the money that, I brought them and they brought me. So there was a mindset shift there where I was like, can I have the success my clients are having? Like, that was a real question for myself. And then the other thing was, can I stop blocking myself and let no come from other places, not myself? Like, that was a big one I had to ask myself, because it was the little things like sending a DM to a peer of mine and saying, will you promote this for me? Like, I didn't want to send that DM and I sent it 10 times that day. So yeah, really lean into what you have in your network and then get out of your own way.
Such smart advice. And I will be fully transparent. I still struggle with that. I struggle with asking for help. I'm getting ready to actually launch a program called Synergist, which you'll know if you're a client. And if not, then someday if you're a client, you'll know more about it. But that being said, this is something that I have done for so many clients, and I've resisted doing for myself because I do not like asking for things. So I love that you did that. I love that you shared that. I think it is really important. And I think it's part of stepping into our next level, not just in our business, but as the leader of our business. So brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, I took a big breath when you were saying all that. It is a major thing that we have to work through in those 8 inches between our left and our right ears. Like, that's the thing that's holding you back, is right there. And the only tool or resource I wanted to share as well is I'm reading a book right now by Amanda Palmer called The Art of Asking. And she's an incredible indie musician who really talks about the difference between asking versus begging. And her distinction of it is that asking means there's a reciprocity there, right? Like, begging is not always a reciprocity. And so, yeah, she really gets into the weeds of how you might be feeling. And so I just wanted to mention that book.
Well, thank you. I know what I will be picking up later today. For all of you listening, if you're reading that too, just message me and let me know what you think.
I love it.
All right. So let's pivot and go to what you had shared about taking time off, right? About the white space in your calendar. So can you share with the listeners how you approach your schedule and how you approach time off in the business and what's enabled you to kind of get there?
Yeah, 100%. So I had a project manager, as I mentioned early on in my business, and I came to her with a terrible idea. I was like, I think I want to take every other Friday off. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to build more time off. And she's like, that's terrible. Why don't you just take the last week of every month off? And I was like, ooh, I like that, because then everybody knows when it's happening. I know when it's happening. So we started doing that. I was like, as an experiment, we put all these systems in place so the clients don't feel like I'm gone, because they're working on their intake forms, and we never set a project start date during that last week of the month. And there's somebody who maintains my inbox while I am taking time off. So that actually worked so easily. I was like, whoa, I didn't even know this was possible, except for I just had the right geniuses around me. Kim Cloak was my project manager at the time, and B, gave myself the permission to try it as an experiment. So that was 8 years ago. And so if you take 1 week off every month, that accumulates to 3 months. And then I take 1 month off every year to accumulate to 4 months. So I don't take 4 consecutive months off every year, because I would get bored. People who do like summer sabbatical and stuff like that, I admire it, but it's not for me. And it's so interesting with that time off, because in the beginning, it was just no calls on my calendar, right? Like no client facing meetings, no team meetings, whatever. And I found myself wanting to still work on things, but more so like my pet projects or the things for myself that weren't for my clients. So that was cool. And then towards like the more I took time off, the more I started to shut down my business brain more completely. And I started getting into like going to trips if we could, doing staycations, hobbies. Like I've been into yoga for a while. I've recently got into boxing. Like finding out who I am outside of my business has been really powerful, because for me, like the first 5 years, I gave everything I would do anything to make it work. Right. Which is a natural rite of passage to go through. But then at a certain time, I started to think about like, who am I hobby wise? Like, who am I besides parenting my children? Who am I outside of a wife? Like, what can I go do that's fun for me? So yeah, it's been really interesting to discover all these things in the time off.
I love that so much. I do Fridays and Mondays as what I call my CVO focus day, my visionary focus day. And that's where I tend to do my more pet projects, or I'll do self-development, or sometimes I'll just take time for myself because I need it. But I have not implemented what you shared yet, although I see this on the horizon as you're talking about it. So for those who are listening who are saying that's what I want. Yes, that. Any tips or any lessons learned as you went through the journey for somebody who wants to carve out that space in their schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we started with this at the end of the last episode, but I'll mention it again, is to first look at your calendar for the next 12 months and mark all the time off that you want. I'm talking government holidays. I'm talking the first day kids go back to school. Like, why would you put anything on your calendar that day? I've made that mistake. Even the whole first week that they go back to school, the week of Halloween, I am not interested, because there's so many requests from the teachers, and I'm just like, I need to fully be in this kid stuff. Your birthday, like we always forget to mark our birthday off, or like just those random holidays that were just Veterans Day, all those days where the kids might be home that you forgot, and now you're stuck like trying to listen to someone on Zoom and trying to get your kids some mango chunks. Like, it's not fun. So please mark those days off in advance. Even if you don't commit to them, just saying you're going to do it will get you more likely to take that time off. So I highly recommend marking that time off. Also having on your calendar, like if you look at your Monday through Friday right now, are you taking calls every single day of the week? because for me, no calls on Mondays, no calls on Wednesdays. Wednesday is all about team meeting, preparing things for internal stuff. Monday is optional inbox day. I don't have to be there if I don't want to, in case I want to go for a hike or something, which I do often. Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, like I'm way more in the business, and I, and even like, this is such a random thing, but it's coming to mind for service providers. Like if you have Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday where you're taking calls and you have yourself available all day long for calls, I personally don't like that. I have a few slots in the morning, a few slots in the afternoon, and that does a couple things. A, it gives you blocks of time to get stuff done in between calls, and B, to a client-facing calendar, it makes you look more exclusive and less accessible. Like it works in your advantage to be less available. I know that seems counterintuitive, but it's just the truth. Like people are like, whoa, she doesn't have a lot of time on her calendar. She must be fully booked. So those are just some little tips to help you with starting to take the time off and figuring out what that's going to look like for you. And then, for me personally, like it's family time, like claiming that time back. I want to be more present with my kids. They're only going to be as young as they are for however long. And so that has been really powerful for me to be able to do more things with them. And it's wild because my husband and I, like, he's been, what do they call during the pandemic, he had to go to work, whatever that was called. And I was home like full time with the kids and everything. It was really intense, but at the same time, like I'm never going to get that time back. Like I had them all the time for 2 years. We stayed home for 2 years. And so I think like to motivate you to want to do these things, think about what that gift of time will get you. And if you feel like you have clients who need you all the time, what systems can you put in place to support them so that you do feel like you're there, but you don't have to be there all the time?
Absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for coming back on, for sharing everything that you're doing in your business. And for anyone who may have missed the first part of the interview, can you just tell people a little bit about what you do and share that amazing link that you gave everybody in the last interview?
Yes, please. All right. So if you all want to stay in touch, I am very much a lover of all things email. So come into my email world, because even if you never buy anything from me, you'll learn so much just from watching the way I interact with my community. And definitely listen to the last episode because I go way deeper on this. But I have a gift. It's my triple email open rates. And it's 3 emails that you can copy, paste, and personalize and send to your emails or to your list. If you've ghosted your list, this is the perfect way to reappear in their inbox. And if you've had a list for a long time, this will allow you to scrub your list. You can remove unengaged subscribers. You'll know what to say, and it'll set you up to make your next offer to them. So if you go to sagepolaris.com/Krista rocks, because she does, you can get my triple email open rates. And I would love for you to stay in touch with me in that way, because I'm all about building community.
I love it. Sage, thank you again for being here. Those links will be down below in the show notes. So make sure you go back and listen to the first part of the interview, and make sure you go check out the link that Sage shared. Sage, any final tips for people before we wrap up today?
Yeah. Okay. So again, Krista, this is amazing. Thank you for having me. I love being a part of your circle. And just any final tips around if you're pivoting your business model, or you're wanting to take more time off. This is kind of a direct thing, but for my service providers, seriously think about VIP days. It is the thing that allowed me to create even more space on my calendar when I already had a lot. So I would say if you've never toyed with the idea of serving certain clients in an intensive fashion, please think about that, because you can block off your calendar so much more and get so much more of your time back for other things that you want to do.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone, I hope you absolutely loved our conversation today. We will see you again next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show and would love if you take a moment to leave us a review. If you have any questions on today's episode or on how to lean out your business, join us over in our private Facebook community where every week we do live training and Q&A, and I'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Head to leanoutmethod.com/group to join us. And before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. We'll see you next week.